In 1944, a psychiatrist named Viktor Frankl arrived at Auschwitz. He had, sewn into the lining of his coat, the manuscript of a book, his life's work, a theory about what keeps human beings alive when everything else has been stripped away. The manuscript was confiscated. That night, on a scrap of paper, he began rewriting it from memory. He would continue rewriting it daily, in stolen moments, in conditions designed to make thought impossible for the duration of his imprisonment, not because he hoped to publish it, because the act of writing was itself the thing that kept him here. The work gave him a why. And Nietzsche had told him, long before the camp, that a man who has a why can bear almost any how. I want to tell you what Frankl found, not the philosophy, the data. The chief doctor of his camp later reported something that had puzzled him for years. In the week between Christmas 1944 and New Year's 1945, the death rate increased beyond anything previously recorded. Not because conditions were harder, not because of new disease or worse food. The prisoners had believed they would be home by Christmas. When it didn't happen, when December 25th came and went, and the barbed wire remained something broke, not their bodies, their orientation toward the future, their why. Without it, their immune systems collapsed. They died from the loss of hope, the way a building collapses when you remove its load-bearing wall. Frankl had been watching this for years. A prisoner who gave up, who stopped getting dressed, stopped eating, lay face down, refusing to move, was, in his clinical experience, almost certainly dead within days, not from illness, from the withdrawal of meaning. And he had been watching the opposite too. The men who survived psychologically were not always the physically strongest. They were the ones who had something to live for, a child waiting somewhere, an unfinished work, a person they needed to see again. Meaning was not a comfort they reached for when conditions allowed. It was the mechanism of survival itself. Frankl called his theory logotherapy. Logos, the Greek word for meaning. The will to meaning, he argued, is the primary motivational force in human life. Not pleasure, as Freud believed. Not power, as Adler believed. Meaning. And here is where Viktor Frankl and Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, working 30 years apart from completely different starting points, arrived at the same room. The state Csikszentmihalyi spent 50 years documenting. The state Frankl had been living in without knowing its name, what we now call flow. Csikszentmihalyi was a child in an Italian prison camp during the Second World War. He discovered chess, and in chess found a state in which the chaos outside became irrelevant, where the self went quiet and the board was everything. He spent 50 years trying to understand that state. He called it flow. Tens of thousands of interviews across every culture on Earth confirmed it was universal, and the people with the most flow in their lives scored highest, not just for performance, but for meaning, for life satisfaction. This is the connection that most people miss. What lies underneath every productivity claim that flow researchers have made, and they have made significant ones, is this. The flow state is the state in which a human being most completely inhabits their own life. The past dissolves. The future dissolves. Only this moment, fully entered. Frankl had a name for this from inside the camp. He called it the last human freedom. He wrote, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing. The last of the human freedoms to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way." He did not mean passive acceptance. He meant the active choice to be fully present to whatever is in front of you, to give your full attention to something beyond yourself, to find the why that makes the how bearable. One morning, marching in icy darkness, sores on his feet, he forced his mind to imagine himself standing at a lectern in a warm, well-lit room, giving a lecture on the psychology of the concentration camp. Every detail, the attentive audience, the upholstered seats, his own voice, precise and calm. The suffering of that moment became, for the duration of the vision, the object of a fascinating scientific study. He had risen above it. That is flow, in Auschwitz, with nothing. This is what I have been building toward across this entire series. Not the neuroscience of peak performance, something more fundamental. The flow state is not what you enter when your life is finally good enough. It is the mechanism by which human beings remain fully alive under any conditions. It is the state Frankl found rewriting his manuscript by memory. The state Csikszentmihalyi found over a chessboard in a prison camp. The state available to you, right now, in this life, with what you already have the moment you decide what your why is and give your full attention to it. He who has a why can bear almost any how. The flow state is the how becoming bearable, because the why has become everything.